Meeting to order, would you please join me in the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sir, will you please conduct the roll?
Mr. Conroy.
Here.
Mr. Dave.
Here.
Mr. Hall.
Here.
Mr. Henry.
Here, sir.
Mr. Keenan.
Here.
Mr. McManus.
Here.
Mr. Courier.
Here.
Mr. Rosenquist.
Here.
Mr. Timmons.
Here.
Ms. Waldron.
Here.
You all have a copy of the stenographer's minutes from the November 26th regular session. Are there any additions, corrections, or deletions? If not, I'll accept the minutes as presented.
Motion. Second.
Discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Tonight, we do have a public hearing on Clinton County's development needs and possible submission of one or more community development block grants and applications. Mr. Brown was going to say something.
I'll read it.
All right, you go ahead.
There you go. Clinton County will hold a public hearing at 7 p.m. on Wednesday, December 11th, 2019, at a meeting of the Clinton County Legislature in the legislative chambers located at the Clinton County Government Center, 137 Margaret Street, second floor, in Plattsburgh, New York, for the purpose of hearing public comments on Clinton County's community development needs and to discuss the possible submission of one or more community development block grant applications for the 2019 program year. The CDBG program is administered by the New York State Office of Community Renewal and will make available to eligible local governments approximately $10 million for the 2019 program year for housing, economic development, public facilities, public infrastructure, and planning activities with the principal purpose of benefiting low and moderate income persons. The hearing will provide further information about the CDBG program and will allow for citizen participation in the development of any proposed grant applications and/or to provide technical assistance to develop alternative proposals. Comments on the CDBG program or proposed projects will be received at this time. The hearing is being conducted pursuant to Section 570.486 Subpart I of the CFR and in compliance with requirements of the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974 as amended. The location of the hearing is accessible to persons with disabilities. If special accommodations are needed for persons with disabilities, those with hearing impairments, or those in need of translation from English, those individuals should contact Rodney Brown, Clinton County Deputy Administrator at 518-565-4600, or the Clinton County Government Center, 137 Margaret Street, Suite 208, Plattsburgh, New York, 12901, at least 1 week in advance of the hearing date to allow for necessary arrangements. Written comments may also be submitted to Rodney Brown until December 13, 2019.
Thank you very much. I'll now entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
Motion. Second.
Second over here. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We'll now open the public hearing. Is there anyone wishing to address the board on this matter? Mr. Brown, go right ahead, sir.
It is the intent of Clinton County to submit a grant application in the amount of $400,000 under the Community Development Block Grant Homeownership Program. The purpose of the program is to assist low and moderate income individuals and families with the cost to purchase and rehabilitate, if necessary, a home. Clinton County has received and successfully administered a total of 7 homeownership grants since 2003, assisting in approximately 118 home closings. The current grant, if awarded, is expected to support the purchase of approximately 15 homes. The grant submission deadline is December 18th, 2019.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wishing to address the board? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, now we go back to the public one more time and ask them, is there anyone here wishing to address the board on any concerns that they have about issues in Clinton County in accordance with the rules? Please state your name and address for the record, and you'll be limited to 5 minutes, but we are very liberal with that 5 minutes.
Very good, sir.
If we're interested, not just kidding.
Thank you, sir.
Go right ahead.
My name is Jeffrey B. Barker, Plattsburgh, New York. I am here to address and have you consider several county matters with an interest in improvement, accountability, and transparency with respect to county expenditures. Recent articles have identified this area as depressed, allowing for a large infusion of tax money projects. I understand this includes $42 million in New York funds to build an international cargo facility here. To me, this is not wise use of our money, since the current domestic cargo facility with the high cost of air freight is underutilized and unproven, except for a small air freight feeder here for FedEx. As you are aware of, air freight is very expensive. For example, ground shipment of recent car goods from Georgia cost me $169, whereas air freight for the same cargo would have cost $1,746. Here's the proof here. Very expensive, this air cargo you're building into this airport. Very few businesses can afford these extremely high costs. And to label us as a suburb of Montreal is very risky and far-fetched, considering the pitfalls such as distance, laws, and the MCA that can make this plan a liability for us taxpayers. Perhaps we are indeed a suburb of Burlington, which would explain the low load factor performance of subsidized SkyWest Airlines here, our only essential hub feeder compared to the many flight options at Burlington Airport. For example, for the first 8 months of this year, the official load factor for SkyWest here is a poor 55%, with a target of about 82% considered healthy. My research indicates that the 2019 annual county operating budget for the airport here is a revised $8.2 million, and for 2020, a tentative $8.8 million, with a total county budget of $174.7 million. The residents here are entitled to know what the revenue generated to offset this cost is, such as passenger ticket fees, parking fees, and lease fees, etc. For example, is Canadian money taken on par? And what is the percentage earned by Republic Parking? We are entitled to know how this airport business model is performing for the taxpayer, such as net gain or loss, since it is considered, quote, a business. Likewise, it will be a hard sell to attract an international passenger carrier to this uncontrolled, limited feed airport here. Also, 12,000 annual employments, as I read it, may be hard to fulfill, thus increasing the operating cost to the taxpayers here. To read that this county has set aside reserve funds to cover these costs is very disturbing to me. Certainly, many of our area residents can use such monies outside of this gamble on airport operations as identified herein by me. Furthermore, Spirit Airlines offers us a large international hub at the Fort Lauderdale Airport to those wishing to so utilize. Clinton Community College could use the support of this legislature to encourage more fully matriculated full-time students. Perhaps an agreement with many of the local industries to permit flexible part-time work will ensure this avenue of fully and qualified employees for the local businesses. Lastly, with the influx of many truck operations on our roadways here, perhaps the county can encourage certain route systems to mitigate traffic, noise, and roadway wear. I'm on Route 9, I got 18-wheelers swinging by Valcourt all the time, and it's very, very annoying. Call it Standard Truck Application Route System, STARS, similar to how airlines arrive at noise-sensitive airports. I would like to give my support to Legislator Mark Dane for chairman, and I submit this writing so the secretary can accurately recall the points set forth herein by me. 10 seconds ago, sir. I appreciate you all taking time to think this through, okay?
I'll take that.
Yes, sir. You got it.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, very good, sir.
Is there anyone else wishing to address the board tonight? If not, we will go to committee reports. As a reminder, each of The legislators chairs 1 in 10 standing committees, and will now call on the chairperson in alphabetical order of each of these committees. Building and Grounds, Mr. Perrier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Building and Grounds Committee met Monday, December 9th. James Cleveland, the superintendent of building and Grounds, was present and reported at the Government Center parking lot project. The project has successfully been completed. Resolutions 979 and 980 have been placed on the agenda tonight as a result of the committee's recommendation. End of report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Children and Family Services, Mr. Henry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Children and Family Services Committee met Tuesday, December 3rd. John Redden, the Commissioner of the Department of Social Services, was present to discuss resolutions 981 through 992, which have been placed on the agenda upon the recommendations of the committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Economic Development, County Operations, Mr. Conroy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Economic Development and County Operations met earlier tonight. Joel Wood, who's new with the chamber, formerly with the city, came to present on his role there with the North Country NAM Trans organization that represents all the different companies that are in transportation manufacturing. We also had Justin Ein, the director of the Plattsburgh YMCA, who submitted an out-of-cycle request for tobacco settlement funds in the amount of $5,000 to fund the first phase of a feasibility study. He noted they were requesting this grant out of normal cycle due to the timing of the project and study. The study will determine the demand supply for various activities that can be provided by the YMCA in Clinton County, evaluating existing possibilities for providing those activities, which may include construction of a new building or repurposing of existing buildings. And I just want to add on a side note, I think we did pass this, so it'll be on the next regular session. But I think it's a good thing that we passed it. It sends a message to the community that we're supporting this, and they're looking for buy-in from other people in the community, so that'll be good for them. We also talked with Renee McFarland, who presented on kind of a wrap-up of the year, talked about her position with the IDA and as economic developer, reviewed the DRI in downtown, talked about some issues with the TDC, and I mentioned the idea that I think it'd be a good idea for the Economic Development Committee and possibly the legislature as a whole to get a weekly or monthly email of events, whether they're chamber events, TDC events, city, county events that are focused on economic development, so we can encourage engagement from legislators. And lastly, I wanted to just throw out there the idea that it'd be nice to name the old airport the Advanced Manufacturing Park, which would be AMP, A-M-P. It's kind of how many amps, kind of an electric name. Just want to throw that out there before the end of the year, have people think about names. And finally, I wanted to thank Harry McManus for giving me the opportunity to serve as chair of this committee for the past couple of years. It's been a great opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Finance, Mr. Rosenquist.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Public hearing on the 2020 tentative county budget was held on Wednesday, December 4th. Resolution number 975 on tonight's agenda will be to adopt the budget. Resolution 976 will authorize 2020 funding with budget-approved contract agencies, and 977 will establish Northern Insuring as the broker of record for 2020 property and casualty insurance. Resolution 993 will authorize the application of the Clinton County Land Bank. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you very much. Health, Ms. Waldron.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the Health Committee met Tuesday, December 3rd. Rochelle Gregory, the Director of Community Services, was present to discuss resolutions 994 through 997. John Canoza, the Director of Public Health, was present to discuss resolutions 998 through resolution 1002. Mr. Canoza also discussed the Director's report for October, the Health Department report for October, the memorandum of understanding regarding mutual aid for surge capacity and public health preparedness and action for health. End of the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Human Services, Mr. Keenan.
The Human Services Committee meeting scheduled for Wednesday, December 4th was canceled. The committee was polled on resolutions 1003 through 1006. End of report.
Thank you. Personnel, Mr. Day.
The personnel meeting scheduled for Monday, December 2nd, was also canceled. The committee was polled for resolution 1007 through 1012, which are on tonight's agenda. And the next committee meeting is undetermined at this point.
Thank you. Plattsburgh International Airport, Mr. Hall.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Plattsburgh International Airport Committee has not met since the last regular session. The committee was polled on resolutions 1013, which is on tonight's agenda. The committee also recommended resolution 1036 under waive rule 13.2 to be placed on the agenda. Next meeting will be held Monday, December 23rd at 5:15 p.m. End of report.
Thank you very much. Public Safety, Mr. Henry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Public Safety Committee meeting scheduled for Monday, December 9th was canceled. Resolutions number 1014 through 1017 have been polled and placed on the agenda upon the recommendation of the committee.
Thank you. Transportation, Mr. Timmons.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the Transportation Committee meeting scheduled for Monday, December 9th was canceled. Resolutions 1018 through 1022 have been pulled and placed on the agenda upon the recommendation of the committee and the reports.
Thank you. We'll do some liaison reports. Board of Health, Mr. Henry.
No report, and the meeting for December has been canceled.
Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Rosenberg.
We had the last meeting of the year on Friday, and I'll send an email on the yearly wrap-up after that.
Thank you very much. Community College, Mr. Dane.
No report, sir.
Community Services Board, Mr. Conroy.
Yes, Community Services Board did not meet, but this morning there was the Spark Committee met. A lot of the Community Services Board was there. The main focus was on bail reform and how that's going to affect mental health and addiction treatment, as well as how it's going to impact our numbers at the jail and our operations at the jail. And that was it.
Thank you. Cooperative Extension, Mr. Timmons.
There will not be a December meeting. Our next meeting is January 21st.
Anything on discipline review?
No.
Grievance?
No meeting is scheduled. No need to have a meeting scheduled.
Inter-county, Ms. Wall.
No December meeting, but we will have 2 in January to conduct our very important business.
Thank you. LCNLG, Mr. Keenan.
No report.
Soil and Water, Mr. Henry, Mr. Timmons.
We do not meet until next Thursday, the 19th.
Thank you. Workforce Development Board, Mr.
No report, sir.
Rosenquist. Staff members, Ms. Kelleher.
No report, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Zerlo.
Very briefly, Rodney just left the chambers. We realized that the resolution for the application of the CDBG grant that was referenced in the public hearing today does in fact need to be passed this evening. So should the legislature be so inclined, under Labor Rule 13.2, we will pass the application for the CDBG.
Thank you very much. Before voting on the resolutions, I would just like to note again that the majority of those resolutions have been thoroughly discussed in the committees by the appropriate individuals, and we're taking action tonight in large part based upon those recommendations. Mr. Zerlo, would you please read the titles of the resolutions?
Certainly. Resolution 975, adopting the 2020 Clinton County Budget Legislature.
Motion, Mr. Rosenquist, and I would like to second this because this will be my last vote on a budget. Discussion. Yes.
I don't think we can let a $170 million budget go get passed without at least a couple of comments. First of all, again, our budget officer, I'd like to thank him for the tremendous job that he does in putting forth before us a budget that we really don't have to sweat too much over because he's done it for the weeks and months leading up to the budget. This is a very solid budget. It has a minuscule property tax levy increase, and it certainly should be palatable to the taxpayers. There are, however, some challenges coming up for Clinton County in 2020. that, most of us are aware of, that we will have to take care of, some expenses that we need to rein in, and it's gonna take, some imagination, some work, and some ingenuity to do that. And I will leave you with these final comments that I do just about every year. This is a budget, it's an estimate of expenses and revenues, and the fact that it's in the budget and it's, on a line item doesn't mean that any time we can't change our minds or come up with a more economical way to either buy that or provide that service. So I hope we don't hear any time during the coming year that, well, it's in the budget, we can spend it, like it doesn't affect it. The fact of the matter remains that $29.7 million is being levied on our hardworking taxpayers. And I know I do, and I think I can speak for all of us, that we respect those taxpayers and we will be wise with it. And again, thank you, Mr. Bell, and the department heads that helped me do that.
Well, yeah, thank you, Mr. Dane. I do appreciate that. It's always incumbent upon me to thank my team. There's a whole bunch of work that goes on behind the scenes. I sometimes I get credit for things, but a lot of work goes on. Lee, in her first year, stepped up and did a wonderful job. The treasurer's office was very helpful, as well as Mr. Brown and Ms. Kimball. So it certainly is a team effort, but I do appreciate the comment. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Conroy?
Yeah, I'd just like to point out that I think it's important to remember that we're constantly on the lookout for how to provide services in a more efficient way. So we're always trying to be careful with money, and that's a huge part of our responsibility to deliver good services at a good price. At the same time, I think the county's been doing a good job of also looking into investing in quality of life and economic development. And when we do that, a little bit of investment there goes a long ways. And I really see this area on the rise, and I see a lot of the county's role as being an important part of that rise.
Thank you. Anyone else? I would just make one comment over the 12-year period. The tax rate this year is less than it was when I started, which I think is due to a number of factors, but we have invested a lot of money in Clinton County in economic development and tourism, and it's paying off, and that's a decision we all made collectively together, and certainly one of the reasons the budget is in the shape that it is because of sales tax, and that specifically deals with those things. So we've wisely, in my opinion, over the last 12 years, invested money in projects that we think show progress for that entire time period. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Mr. Zerl, but I'm going to do it on the 23rd anyway, so I'll save my remarks for that. Thank you. Okay.
Before we,
Yeah.
While we're on the resolution, Mr. President.
Okay. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, my previous comment, I'd like to revise with respect to the necessity to pass the CDBG application. Is not required that we do that, so there'll be no additions.
Okay. Well, we will be doing it on the 23rd.
No, I don't believe so.
We did it at the last one.
Oh, okay. Okay. Good to know.
Resolution 976, authorizing 2020 contracts with budget-approved contract agencies, legislature.
Motion, Mr. Rosenquist, second, Mr. Dane, discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
Resolution 977, approving Northern Insuring as the broker of record for the 2020 property and casualty insurance, legislature.
Motion, Mr. Rosenquist, second, Mr. Dane, discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
Resolution 978, establishing the date for the organizational meeting, legislature.
Motion, Mr. Henry, second, Mr. Timmons, discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 979, authorizing contract amendment with Real Construction, Buildings and Grounds.
Motion, Mr. Perrier, second, Mr. Henry, discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
Resolution 980, authorizing contract amendment with Schindler Elevator Corporation, Buildings and Grounds.
Motion, Mr. Perrier, second, Mr. Timmons, discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
Resolution 981, authorizing payment of membership dues at Youth Bureau.
Motion, Mr. Henry, second, Mr. Keenan, discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
Resolution 982, authorizing memorandum of understanding with Champlain Valley Family Center and Clinton County Employment and Training Administration, Social Services.
Motion, Mr. Henry, second, Ms. Waldron, discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
Resolution 983, authorizing contract with Clinton County Mental Health and Addiction Services and Clinton County Employment and Training Administration, Social Services.
Motion, Mr. Henry, second, Mr. Keenan, discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
Resolution 984, authorizing contract with Top Youth Speakers, Youth Bureau.
Motion, Mr. Henry, second, Mr. Timmons, discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
Resolution 985, authorizing various contracts for the year 2020, Social Services.
Motion, Mr. Henry, second, Ms. Waldron, discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
Resolution 986, authorizing payment of membership dues for the year 2020, Social Services.
Motion, Mr. Henry, second, Mr. Keenan, discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
Resolution 987, authorizing contracts with various foster care facilities for the year 2020, Social Services.
Motion, Mr. Henry, second, Mr. Timmons, discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 988, authorizing contract with various daycare providers for the year 2020, Social Services.
Motion, Mr. Henry, second, Ms. Waldron, discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
Resolution 989, authorizing daycare registration funds grant application and acceptance, Social Services.
Motion, Mr. Henry, second, Mr. Keenan, discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
Resolution 990, authorizing Child and Family Service Plan, Social Services, Youth Bureau.
Motion, Mr. Henry, second, Mr. Keenan, discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 991, authorizing the Municipal Comprehensive Runaway and Homeless Youth Plan, Social Services.
Motion, Mr. Henry, second, Mr. Timmons, discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 992, authorizing Safe Harbor Grant application and acceptance, Social Services.
Motion, Mr. Henry, second, Ms. Waldron, discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
Resolution 993, authorizing the application of the Clinton County Land Bank Treasurer's Office.
Motion, Mr. Rosenquist, second, Mr. Perrier, discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 994, approving appointments to the Clinton County Developmental Disabilities Subcommittee, Mental Health and Addiction.
5-5, Ms. Waldron, Mr.
Yes.
Henry.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 995, approving appointment to the Clinton County Community Services Board, Mental Health and Addiction.
5-5, Mr. Timmons.
Yes, please.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 996, authorizing contract amendment with Behavioral Health Services North, Mental Health and Addiction.
Motion, Ms. Waldron, second, Mr. Conroy, discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
Resolution 997, authorizing the Champlain Valley Physicians Hospital Foundation Community Grant application and acceptance, Mental Health and Addiction.
Motion, Ms. Waldron, second, Mr. Henry, discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
Resolution 998, approving reappointments to the Clinton County Board of Health, Health Department.
5-5, Mr. Hall, Mr. Dane.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 999, authorizing clinical conversations grant acceptance, Health Department.
Motion, Ms. Waldron, second, Mr. Perry, discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
Resolution 1000, authorizing out-of-state travel, Health Department.
Motion, Ms. Waldron, second, Mr. Conroy, discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
Resolution 1001, authorizing contract with various contractors for clinical services for sexually transmitted infections, Health Department.
Motion, Ms. Waldron, second, Mr. Henry, discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
Resolution 1002, amending Resolution 882 dated November 13, 2019, titled Authorizing Various Contracts for the Year 2020 Health Department.
Motion, Ms. Waldron, second, Mr. Perrier. Discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dean?
Yes.
Resolution 1003, authorizing contract amendment with North Country Home Services, Office for the Aging.
Motion, Mr. Keenan, second, Mr. Conroy. Discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dean?
Yes.
Resolution 1004, authorizing delivery system reform incentive payment, DSRIP program grant amendment, Office for the Aging.
Motion, Mr. Keenan, second, Mr. Dane. Discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dean?
Yes.
Resolution 1005, authorizing contract with Leading Age New York State Pro Care Nursing Home.
Motion, Mr. Keenan, second, Mr. Perrier. Discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dean?
Yes.
Resolution 1006, authorizing contract with Rand Hill Painters and Home Improvement Nursing Home.
Motion, Mr. Keenan, second, Mr. Conroy. Discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
Resolution 1007, approving backfill of a permanent full-time caseworker, social services.
Motion, Mr. Dane, second, Mr. Henry. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 1008, approving backfill of permanent full-time senior account clerk typist, social services.
Motion, Mr. Dane, second, Mr. Henry. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 1009, approving backfill of permanent full-time senior account clerk typist, highway department.
Motion, Mr. Dane, second, Mr. Timmons. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 1010, approving backfill of permanent full-time motor equipment operator mechanic, Plattsburgh International.
Motion, Mr. Dane, second, Mr. Hall. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 1011, approving backfill of a permanent part-time station attendant, solid waste.
Motion, Mr. Dane, second, Mr. Conroy. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 1012, approving the backfill of a permanent part-time station attendant, solid waste.
Motion, Mr. Dane, second, Mr. Hall. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 1013, authorizing lease agreement with Adirondack Salt and Sand, Plattsburgh International.
Motion, Mr. Dane, second, Mr. Hall. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I can't vote on this.
Okay.
Personal reasons.
Very good. Anyone else? Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
One abstention, Mr. Perrier. Resolution 1014, authorizing memorandum of understanding with the Plattsburgh City Police Department, Sheriff's Department.
Motion, Mr. Henry, second, Mr. Dane. Discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
Resolution 1015, authorizing contract amendment with Motorola Solutions, Emergency Services.
Motion, Mr. Henry, second, Mr. Conroy. Discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
Very briefly, Chairman, the rollout of the new P25 system is progressing. So they're almost at the point of testing the systems with both of them being live, because they don't want to shut the old system down until they're fully confident in the new system. But as you just read on that last resolution, that entire P25 system has not affected the county tax levy, so something that you folks should be proud of.
With the change orders, was this just an assumption of work that just wasn't included?
That is correct, and the lease payment was increased, and the grant award from the state of New York that we used to pay the lease payment still exceeds any amount that was included in the change order.
Okay, thank you.
Resolution 1016, authorizing contract with Samaritan Hospital, District Attorney's Office, Child Advocacy Center.
Motion, Mr. Henry, second, Mr. Hall. Discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
Resolution 1017, authorizing payment of membership dues for the year 2020 District Attorney.
Motion, Mr. Henry, second, Mr. Keenan. Discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
Resolution 1018, authorizing change order number 1 with Luck Brothers Incorporated for welding repairs to the True Brook Road Bridge over the True Brook. Bridge identification number 3358320, Highway Department.
Motion, Mr. Timmons, second, Mr. Henry, discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
Resolution 1019, authorizing contract with Radius Repair, Clinton County Public Transit.
Motion, Mr. Timmons, second, Mr. Perrier, discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
Resolution 1020, authorizing contract amendments for the Clinton County Public Transit Student Bus Pass Contracts, Clinton County Public Transit.
Motion, Mr. Timmons, second, Mr. Rosenquist, discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
Resolution 1021, authorizing various memorandums of understanding for the year 2020, Clinton County Public Transit.
Motion, Mr. Timmons, second, Mr. Henry, discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
Resolution 1022, approving reappointment to the Clinton Essex Franklin Library System Board Legislature.
I will move this 5-5. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Who's your professor? Is it
Tom Mann.
Tom Mann?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, you can tell him that you heard his name being approved by resolution to the Clinton Essex Library Board.
Okay.
We can even give you a copy of that.
That would be awesome,
There you go.
yeah. Maybe I'll get some extra
There
credit.
you go, there's 5 points, right?
Resolution 1023, authorizing the county treasurer to just appropriation and corresponding revenue for various Office for the Aging grants, Office for the Aging.
Motion, Mr. Keenan, second, Mr. Conroy, discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
Resolution 1024, authorizing the county treasurer to adjust appropriation and corresponding revenue for the expanded in-home services for the elderly program, Office for the Aging.
Motion, Mr. Keenan, second, Mr. Dane, discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
Resolution 1025, authorizing the county treasurer to increase appropriation and corresponding revenue for the expanded in-home services for the elderly program, Office for the Aging.
Motion, Mr. Rosenquist, second, Mr. Keenan, discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
Resolution 1026, authorizing the county treasurer to increase capital project titled 2019 Master Plan Improvement Project Buildings and Grounds.
Motion, Mr. Rosenquist, second, Mr. Perrier, discussion. Roll call.
On discussion, we're not increasing the amount of money that we're borrowing for the 2019 master plan. What this resolution does is account for the additional revenue coming in, part from the city of Plattsburgh and part from the state of New York Office of Court Administration for their portions of the parking lot project. Resolution 1027.
I think we did roll call.
That was good. Roll call, sorry.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
Resolution 1027, authorizing the county treasurer to increase appropriation and corresponding revenue for the county clerk's office.
Motion, Mr. Rosenquist, second, Mr. Conroy, discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
Resolution 1028, authorizing the county treasurer to establish an appropriation and corresponding revenue for the district attorney's office state seizure reserve, district attorney's office.
Motion, Mr. Rosenquist, second, Mr. Henry, discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
Resolution 1029, authorizing the county treasurer to adjust appropriations in various accounts, Highway Department.
Motion, Mr. Rosenquist, second, Mr. Timmons, discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
I'm just looking at this title, I'm not on the transportation committee, but this is a grant for high visibility crackdown?
No. On 1029?
Oh, next one.
Oh, I'm on number 30, 130. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Resolution 1030, authorizing the county treasurer to decrease appropriation and corresponding revenue for the high visibility crackdown grant sheriff's department.
Motion, Mr. Rosenquist, second, Mr. Henry, discussion.
What is a high visibility crackdown?
This is DWI
Okay.
Events.
I got the highway and the sheriff's department mixed up in this title, so excuse me, I'm sorry.
Yes, so,
I thought we were doing cracks in the road. for the-
no. When we closed, when the sheriff's department closed out that grant, there was $2,000 remaining, so we have to exit Z out
I
the
had
account.
departments mixed up. I shouldn't get ahead of myself.
Roll call.
Ms. Walden?
Yes.
Mr. Dane? Resolution 1031, authorizing the county treasurer to decrease appropriation and corresponding revenue for the Child Passenger Safety Grant, Sheriff's Department.
Motion, Mr. Rosenquist, second, Mr. Henry, discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
Resolution 1032, authorizing the county treasurer to decrease appropriation and corresponding revenue for the Community-Based Traffic Safety Program Grant, Sheriff's Department.
Motion, Mr. Rosenquist, second, Mr. Henry, discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
Resolution 1033, authorizing the county treasurer to decrease appropriation and corresponding revenue for the Police Traffic Services Grant, Sheriff's Department.
Motion, Mr. Rosenquist, second, Mr. Henry, discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
Resolution 1034, authorizing the county treasurer to establish appropriation and corresponding revenue for the Comprehensive Addiction and Recovery Act Funds Grant, Social Services.
Motion, Mr. Rosenquist, second, Mr. Henry, discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
Resolution 1035, authorizing the county treasurer to close various capital projects, Treasurer's Office.
Motion, Mr. Rosenquist, second, Mr. Perrier, discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Motion to waive Rule 13.2.
Motion.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 1036, amending Resolution 323 dated April 24, 2019, titled Authorizing Contract with Provost Drone Solutions, Plattsburgh International.
Motion, Mr. Hall, second, Mr. Conroy, discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
And Resolution 1037, authorizing the county treasurer to establish appropriations and corresponding revenue for the Clinical Conversations Grant Health Department.
Motion, Mr. Rosenquist, second, Ms. Waldron, discussion. Roll call.
Ms. Waldron?
Yes.
Mr. Dane?
Yes.
Does anyone have anything else to come up with the legislature?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Mr. Rosenquist.
As Legislator Dane mentioned earlier, big thanks to our budget officer, Mike Durlow, and the staff for putting together such a fantastic budget. This is going to be my last meeting of the year. I'm traveling like I do every year, and in the chance of trying to avoid embarrassing myself, I want to thank you, Gary. I want to thank you. In the 4 years, I've learned 3 things from you. Build consensus, remain open-minded, and stay level-headed. I'm working on that third one still. Okay? But I appreciate your leadership, and I appreciate your advice, both personal and professional, and thank you for everything.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much. I will entertain a motion. Yes. Sorry.
I cannot go tonight without saying a few words on a subject that happened earlier. We have an unwritten rule, I don't believe it's a rule, that we're not supposed to engage with the people that come here to speak, and I can understand that. I think it's a good rule, unwritten or not, and we should not get into a discussion or an argument about it. But when I hear a gentleman stand up there tonight with the news media here and talk about our Clinton County Airport, it really hurts me. It hurts me drastically. The figures he's giving are not true. They're not what he says they are. SkyWest, which goes under the United banner, flying to Washington, D.C., has done tremendous here. Way better. The numbers are way better than anybody we've ever had here before. We're getting ready to go out to bid again for the EAS, and I pray that they bid it again. It's a great service. You can go to Washington anywhere you want. We've had nothing but compliments about it. Do we have issues at the airport that are financial that we've got to take care of? Yes, and we're working on it every day. There's not a day goes by that we're not trying to make more money for the Clinton County Airport. So for this gentleman to stand up here and do nothing but criticize our airport, I think is a travesty, and I just want you to know that we're doing the best we can, and we will continue to make Clinton County Airport better.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Mr.
I'd like to second what the comments that Bobby just made. You know, I really see the airport as an anchor in the county of growth, and we're really just getting started there with the completion of the most recent grant and the constant search for international flight as well as additional domestic flights. And I really see us, we're just scratching the surface with that airport, and the demand from the cross-border demand is incredible, and I see a bright future there.
Anyone else? Yes, Ms. Walden.
I didn't get to thank Mr. Zerlo, and on behalf of District 6, I want to say you really make us legislators look better than we probably are.
Impossible.
I just really, I profoundly want to thank you for what you do for this county and for the love that you do have for this county. I appreciate it, and so does my area out there.
I happen to reside in your area, so I thank you very much. By the same token, we are surrounded by a team of people, one to my immediate left, and obviously Mr. Brown and the entire staff, as well as you folks have done some wonderful things in your decisions on who you hired to run your departments. My management style is to not micromanage, to get involved when it's necessary. So you have hired a good group of management, and we have a dedicated workforce in this county. The relationship that we have, that you have with your labor unions is positive. We don't agree on every issue all the time, but we work together. Everybody understands what they need to do to make us a success. So while I appreciate that, and it means a lot to me, there is a lot of people who deserve that.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'd just like to make a quick comment on the gentleman who spoke also. By any metric that I'm aware of, this has been a tremendous success for Clinton County. And a lot of that credit, in my opinion, goes to the current chairman, Mr. Hall. So I hope that at some point the press gets an opportunity to talk to Mr. Hall and or Mr. Brown in relation to some of the figures that were presented tonight, because they are inaccurate. Motion to adjourn.
So motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We're done.